Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today we have two incredible guests for you. Our first guest, Reverend Dr. Carol Bliss, is an artist, author, inspirational speaker, and emeritus professor of communication at Cal Poly University. She has taught communication at Claremont Graduate University, Chino Men's Prison, and at universities in Thailand and China. She teaches and leads workshops in spirituality, creativity, communication, and ancient wisdom traditions. Her creative style and passion for positive, meaningful living has helped transform the lives of college students, inmates, and individuals who seek relevant spirituality in this often chaotic world. She deeply believes in the healing principles of the mind, body, and spirit. She continues to practice these principles daily as a result of healing from a massive stroke and a brain injury in 2016. She is the author of 5 published books and lives in Naples, California. Our second guest, Martha Bass, believes that practicing spiritual principles can change your whole life. She is a talented coach who is passionate, dynamic, and ready to lead no matter what challenges her clients face. As a coach, she counsels from the depth of her life experience, offering principles on how to love yourself. Her areas of expertise include ways to handle a painful divorce, how to recover from drug addictions, as well as forgiveness and self-forgiveness. Together, they have co-authored the new book, Love Heals. Welcome to the show, Reverend Dr. Carol Bliss and Martha Bass.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful introduction.
Oh my goodness, I butchered it. You know, it's funny because I started to read it and I was combining both of them and I left the words really tiny. So I was too late. When I got into it. I was like, uh-oh. So it didn't go great, but I'm excited to have you guys on the show and talk about what you guys are doing.
All right. Well, as you know, we have written a book called Love Heals, and I'm going to hold it up for you now. And the premise of this book is that I got to watch my brain grow and grow and grow because I could do nothing when I had my stroke. I could not even speak. I could not walk. I could not sit up. I could not tie my shoe. I couldn't even swallow. So I had to relearn everything. And it was fascinating to me. Really, really fascinating because I was not afraid. I knew that help was all around me in the invisible. I was living by myself. And I woke up from a dream. I thought I was dreaming when my body was numb on the right side. So I got out of bed and I thought I was having a nightmare or a bad dream because I had formerly been so athletic and so talkative and so smart. So I felt that was my identity. So when I could not move the right side of my body or speak, I thought I was dreaming. So I went into the bedroom to lie down again to wake myself up from what I thought was a sleepwalking dream. So at that time, a being of light appeared to me. She had just died 2 weeks before. Her name was Yolanthe, and she helped me as a pastoral care director in the AIDS crisis of the 80s. So she was translucent, and she said to me, "My peace I give to you. Don't be afraid. Help is all around you in heaven and on earth. Get up, get dressed, and open the fire door." And then she helped me dial my flip phone, and help arrived in the form of 8 firemen, and they were so gentle with me. They carried me down 32 stairs without jostling me. And then I was supposed to go to yoga on that very day. And when the ambulance passed by the bluff where I take yoga, I motioned to the EMT, I'm supposed to be over there, because I did not ever think that I would become brain injured or incapacitated. So because I couldn't speak, the EMT couldn't understand me. So then I had to wait 9 hours for a bed. And somewhere at that time, I went out of my body. And I stayed out of my body for about 4 weeks. I did not even recognize my identity or myself in the mirror. It was the strangest feeling. And I really was in a state of pure love. I was wholly non-judgmental. Everybody that came to see me, I could feel their energy. I could feel this higher consciousness called love. I could feel love for everybody. And I reacted to persons who did not love me with kindness and compassion. I could feel that they needed that from me. And so I was always drawn to the light, to sunlight, and to everything light. And I would, when I learned to sit up in my wheelchair, I would follow the light around throughout Casa Colina, which is an acute rehab center. And so Martha Bass came to visit me every single day. And because my heart was so open to energy, I decided that Martha was the ideal one to help me regrow my brain. So that is how I met her. And then we wrote the book together, ultimately.
Oh my goodness. That's what, what do I even say to that? That's a lot.
Yeah,
so that, all right. Great. So keep going. Then what happened? How did you just keep going? I'll just listen.
Well, what happened is that we did meet at the church, because I am a spiritual counselor at that church that she's a assistant minister. So because of my life experience, I understand that the importance and the main factor to create any change, any habit, it's to do it through the brain and through love. Okay? I mean, our brains are just magnificent. It's an organ/muscle that if we learn how to treat it, if we learn how to regrow it, there's a new path for us to discover, which is the path of, rewiring the brain. I'm sorry, my throat is it's just hurting today. So if we learn to rewire the brain with love, then the possibilities are there for us to expand, for us to regrow, for us to create the new person that we want to become. And not new, like forgetting the old, but really, evolving and having a different consciousness, a different person. Especially when someone like Carol, that she had the stroke and her brain, she had the stroke on the left side. So we needed to work in rewiring the brain on that sense, so her right side could start working up again. And the truth is that research have shown that every 2 seconds, 7 people die out of stress-caused illness. So when we have that stress in the brain, when we have that stress in the body, we cannot heal. And the only way to do that is through love. And that's why we call the book Love Heals. Because in reality, love does heal. It truly does. So when we get into that emotion of treating your body and your brain and your whole physiology, yes, with love, you are able to really create miracles, and you see the miracles right here in front of you. But we gotta also understand that it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. There is not a magic pill. We're not gonna have a magic pill and say tomorrow you're done. It is a process, and when we wanna achieve something, when we wanna get there, we have to put the time. So by really doing the affirmations and learning to talk to your brain in such a loving and peaceful way, it creates that shift into healing. It creates that really the shift into healing. And I know because I've done it myself with the drug abuse or with the abusive relationship, and now her with her stroke. So in reality, there's no difference. If it's a drug abuse, if it's a brain injury, if it's an abusive relationship, whatever it is, the whole picture, it's really treating the brain and the whole body with love. Because it's what matters is what we tell ourselves all the time. All the time. That's what really creates our identity in the future.
Things like neuroplasticity in the brain, because as a professor, I used to deal with students who were disabled, and I really signed off the paperwork, but I didn't really know what it was like to be disabled. So I likened my stroke, because I did not know anything about strokes before. I thought I would live to be 90 as a healthy, vital person who was out paddle boarding and water skiing and canoeing, because that was my identity. So when I likened the stroke to dropping your iPhone in the toilet. It doesn't really work right. You push the buttons and anything can happen. Sometimes it takes a whole bunch of text to create words, but when you dry it out, that is when the healing starts. So my brain had an earthquake in it, or it got wet from a blood clot. So Martha had to teach me how to rewire my brain. And it was so amazing to me to watch my own brain grow. I couldn't believe it. I was inside my body, and yet I was outside, if you know what I mean.
I do a little bit.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a bridge from what I'm thinking, and then you can go ahead. What you're speaking about, first and foremost, that is super powerful is what we tell ourselves. And I do a guided meditation at the beginning of the podcast when I release them for iTunes. And recently it's just been really this, the idea of committing to yourself, like making the firm, unwavering commitment to be loving and kind to yourself. Yes. And it's so fascinating how terrible we are to ourselves. We're the worst. And, and that's where, that's so fundamental. I don't know how that got designed or how that got culturally normal or became acceptable, but that is massive, you know, what we tell ourselves. And so we're going to be, you know, limiting. You might want to like grow a business and you'll say, oh, here are the ways that I can't grow a business. You know, for me, because sport is so immediate, it's the best tool. Like for, you know, snowboarding, if you want to land a backflip, you say, I can't land it. You're not going to land it. You know, it's what your body can do. So if you equate that to healing or business or life or happiness or finding a partner or anything, you know, what we tell ourselves is the most fundamental thing that you can't pass go and collect 200 until you at least learn to monitor that internal dialogue. And that's where things like meditation can come into play. I sometimes share with some of my clients to just grab a bracelet. And if as soon as they're terrible to themselves, take that bracelet go to the other side, because you're building that neuroplasticity, and you're also having an external stimulus and a trigger that says, hey, when that happens, change that. And over time, they don't have to switch the bracelet as much as they do at first. But so fundamental. And then the second piece that I was just curious about was the spiritual aspect of seeing another side. A lot of people in I just say, like, in life, a lot of people are afraid of death, and that's where religions come in, and some parts of religion are great, some of them maybe not so great, but it's because people are afraid of death. They don't want to burn in hell forever. They don't know if they go nowhere. They don't know what the heck happens. They don't know, if there's spirits, right? It's like, oh, you're praying to nothing. No, there's something there. My personal thought is that there's a realm that we can't see, and that it is supportive. And so maybe I'll just leave that and hand it back to you, wonderful ladies.
And we're afraid of that because we don't understand really the meaning of life. Once we start to understand the meaning of life, it's like there's no need to be fearful. There's no need to be fearful. But going back to what you were saying, it's the first step. It's becoming aware of where we are at. That's the first step, the first step to change, becoming aware of where we are at. And then to understand also how we were saying, it's how the way that we speak to ourselves, and understanding that we go back from our childhood. When we're little kids, our parents tell us, no, don't do that. No, that's not good. We go to school, and yes, we learn, but we're being graded. And if we do something wrong, no, that's not right. So when we get to an adulthood, then we have experienced so many no's that, yes, sometimes it's important to understand, no, we're not allowed to do this. But so many times it's said to us, no, and you're not being good, right? You're not being good, or you didn't lose the weight, or you did not achieve something. So we are carrying with all those affirmations, if you want to call them, because whatever we say, they're affirmations, good or bad, but they're affirmations. And with that, we wire our brain. We get to the point that all those words that we get to ourselves, they're so deep into our subconscious mind that we believe it, even when we don't want to believe it. Therefore, it represents itself in the outside world. So when we intentionally start to change it, and yes, through meditations, yes, to affirmations, but the main point and my best advice is to do those when we feel the worst. That is the key. Because we all want to say, thank you to God, thank you to life, I feel powerful, I feel great, I could achieve, and I could write this when we're feeling high. But when we're feeling low, that's when we really have to do the work so the shift happens. That's when we really have to take the time to look ourselves in the mirror and say, I'm willing to like you, I'm willing to love you. Or, just write a paper down and say, whatever it is that you're dealing with in a gratitude manner, to really start creating that shift. That's when the shift. We see a baby and we want to love them. We want to give them all the power, but we forget about ourselves. And we are carrying this beautiful body of ours everywhere we go. And we forget to be grateful.
That is why I was so elated to be in an out-of-body state, because I felt pure love for the very first time. I had always tried to be kind to my students. I had always felt their energy and decided that I knew how to help them. But when I zoomed up out of my body, I was in a state of pure love. And I really, really understand that love is God or the divine or something so much bigger than we know ourselves to be. So if I had known this, and I taught it before, but now I knew it theoretically, but at the time of the stroke, I knew it for myself. I could feel it. So that is why I could never, ever, ever want to go back to my body, because I could feel that I had lived in too much judgment. I wanted that state to continue forever. And I remember the time that I was heading back into my body because a group of people were sitting at the outside table at Casa Colina, and they were all talking and laughing, and I heard the laughter of someone loud, and I judged her. And I knew that I was coming back into my body. I wanted to love her like I had loved everybody, including myself. And the difference between love and judgment is 360 degrees apart. And so we have to get back to love. We have to allow love into our hearts. And most of all, we have to love ourselves no matter whatever happens to us, no matter if we used to be a smart person and something happened to us. At that point, we need more love than we ever did.
I completely agree with that. You guys made a lot of really beautiful points, and I'll kind of like start one at a time because, you know, people listening to this, and I've had a lot of podcasts, it's the same stuff over in different ways and different experiences and different learnings. And in Zen, they'll just talk about levels of understanding that the principles of life and existence and inner peace are not complicated. They're very simple. They're so simple, you're just going to cruise right past them. Now they have eternal depth. They can just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can just really embody those things. So when you're talking about that internal dialogue, judging even yourself and judging others, it's not a cooperative energy. It's not an energy of like harmony and growth. It's an energy of kind of destruction and chaos and decay, and it only damages you. It's, you know what I mean? It's not, you know, you judging them isn't doing anything like terrible for them. It's you're damaging yourself. So I'd like to explore a little bit deeper because you made a statement. We are afraid of death because we don't understand the meaning of life. If you could fill us in with the meaning of life, that would be awesome. And maybe exploring the death, like death a little bit more, because I think, you know, I've actually had that request for people that they said, hey, we want to talk about death. You know, your perspectives of that, maybe a little bit more on the spirit side, and, you know, what you saw and experienced on another side that, you know, for you is real. And the last thing, because I wrote it down, was just some actual techniques. So I'll give you all that, and then you can come back with whatever.
Okay. Well, the reason that I said that about, you know, life and death, in my opinion, our human minds cannot really comprehend how powerful and loving God is, or really what God is. Okay, I believe that it's an awesome magnificence and infinite intelligence, just this infinite powerful being. Because if you see everything around us, it's perfect just the way it is. It totally is. It's just miracle after miracle after miracle. Therefore, who can create something like that? God, right? Because that's what we like to call our consciousness, and this infinite intelligence. Therefore, there's nothing to fear, because God, it's all love. So in my opinion, when we understand the meaning of life as a place, a beautiful place that we are here to learn, to evolve as human beings, to be that love that, you know, we are here to share to the world. There's nothing to fear. I believe that heaven and hell, it's here in earth. After we're gone, we just go to a different dimension, different consciousness, that there's nothing else to fear.
Higher up.
Yes. So in this moment, in this, you know, in this wavelength, we're here to experience what life is and just love life as it is. But when we don't love life as it is, it's because we put our human mind into expectations that it should be different instead of really working for what we have. And yes, loving ourselves is the key, and becoming the best version of yourself. But not only for us, absolutely, it benefits ourselves. We have a healthy body, healthy mind, and we are able to create. However, When we do that for others, and it's not about me, but we share that to the world, not only we're serving humanity, but we really impact the world as a whole. Because when we become the best version for ourselves, then we share that. And that's why I like to say, nothing changes until we change. When we don't allow ourselves to be the best version, we are taking that away from others to really experience ourselves for the best that we can be. And when we really become that, then we allow others to become, we give them the opportunity to say, hey, I can do that too. Like, really, I can do that, or I want some of that, or why don't you just give me a little, a tip or technique, and it just become a better place. Better place.
Can I give you an example from the world of art?
Yes, please.
Yes, I have been an artist for maybe 35 years. And I used to take life drawing, where you had so many different models come from so many different ethnicities and races and ages. And when you enter that non-judgmental state, you simply draw. You are not judging. And so the minute your brain tries to judge your drawing, you mess it up. And I think that God is really like that, because I have been in that God space. God does not judge at all. God simply loves. This power that is greater than we know ourselves to be. He simply loves. God is love all the time, always was, always will be. We have nothing to fear.
I love that. I feel the same. And for you, you're getting this from a direct experience, right? You were in this space.
Absolutely.
I've been in that space too several times, and it's indescribable. It's beyond words. It is magical. You feel, I described it once as like your mother's love times like 100 billion. It's just like, whoa. And then you are that. And, we're using the word God, which I like, because I was resistant to it forever, because, I have a podcast like religion and spirituality, just because of everything that was kind of taught to me, because it's like God is Jesus and it's a bearded man. And it's like something over me, which I didn't enjoy, that feeling of like, I got to worship a man. And then he gives me a pass or go, if I'm cool. And it just didn't feel good. It didn't make any sense. And, after reading, I've read Conversations with God. It's a really great book. And The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. And what they say is like, God is like the everything. It's like every single thing, everything. And you could use source, spirit, nature. You can use those words, but the word God, the meaning of that word, is the one that resonates. It's like, that's the most aligned force. It is the everything. And it's like this like, I don't even know. It's just like this. It is everything. And you can go, it's like the oneness. It's almost, if you want to be, super analytical about it, you could kind of say the singularity that can touch all things in all life, but it's kind of like supporting you and breathing. When you go to sleep, you're not worried if your heart's beating, you're not worried. It's like, you might not wake up. And then, so we go into like, the idea of death, but when you're into that space, you feel like you're protected, like life continues, energy continues, energy just continues, consciousness continues, you're experiencing that. And it's that fear where people get lost. So they come down and they're judging things. And in that energy, number one, you're judging yourself, and you could use a Bible reference like judge not lest ye be judged. And all that's happening is you're just wasting energy. You're judging yourself. You're probably being terrible to yourself, which isn't allowing the thing to come back to have an enjoyable life experience. We search so much on how to be happy, personal development, spirituality, well, some people do, actually, not everybody. Some people are like, screw all that noise. You know what I mean? I'm going to go get whatever they're doing. And the idea is that we're here now, and it's magical here. And we get to experience life. We can taste ice cream. We can hug our friends and family. We can have, joy in the ocean and touch that. And there's somewhere along the lines where life becomes serious and less magical. You know, it becomes more serious. And I think it happens right away through different things. And I think that what we're touching on is very basic principles. So what I think it comes down to ultimately is actually developing that experience of self-love. Like, all right, sometimes I try not to share stuff on the podcast, but as soon as I think it, I know I have to. But I cried the other day when I was driving because I felt a deep amount of love for myself, and it was new. It's like I have this resistance, even of all the work I've done and all I've tried to do that's positive and that's impactful and supportive of others. Somehow I have a gate to give that to myself, and it's so messed up. It's so messed up. But you know, I kind of saw the impact I made on a few people, and I had a few people reach out and say some kind words. And then I saw all the work that I did, and I was like, I actually do love myself. And I was like, oh, and it was weird because even in that space, I was resistant to it, you know, but it's so important. It's so important to do. And it's so hard to do. So I guess I'll just give it back to you guys. If you have any help or advice, if you want to go deeper in the life after death or spiritual realm or God, go ahead. And then just how do we like let that in, you know, because if you don't have self-love, you're not going to be happy or fulfilled. You're going to be judgmental, most likely. You're going to be stressed out. Life is going to be serious. But when you come from a loving, compassionate state from your own being, then from there, you're kind of like the flower or the tree growing in the forest, and you provide support for all other life, even if that other life is struggling and doesn't want to grow, you know, in their own mind and their own body. And so I'll just leave it with that and go back to you guys.
Well, there's a meditation. Well, it's not like a meditation. It's more like an exercise that I wrote that it's in the book. And if you haven't done this work before, okay, if you're not used to doing affirmations or meditations and you want to start from, you know, just something simple, what I really recommend is really taking a few minutes, because in reality, if we don't have 10 minutes for our growth, then we don't have a life. We got to set the intention to give ourselves at least 10 minutes. And there's an exercise that I wrote when you just, you know, take a couple deep breaths, you close your eyes, and you put your hands on your heart. You put your hands on your heart. And really be grateful and be thankful for that beautiful organ that you have, that it's doing the work for you, that it's pumping the blood, that it's sending it to your brain, sending it to all your body. And in that space of gratitude, like really just take few moments to acknowledge every single organ in your body. That creates such a beautiful feeling. I mean, entering in that space and being aware of the miracle being that you are, it's unbelievable. So once you have that state of gratitude, because every single one of us have to be grateful for our bodies, because we're still here. Even if there's people in the wheelchair, even if there's people that, you know, have an issue with anything, we gotta send love and we have to be grateful. We don't have to, but we want to be grateful because we're still here. So we want to fill that space with gratitude. Our hearts have a direct connection to the divine. They're very intuitive. So when we are in that state of gratitude and really feel the gratitude for your heart and for all its work, ask your heart a question. Ask your heart for guidance. And be grateful because you know that the answer will come. It might not come right away, but be grateful that you will know when the answer comes. And then continue to be grateful for your body. Take a couple deep breaths and then just go on to your day. Imagine if we start every single day with just 10 minutes of gratitude, the different attitude that we're going to have, the different energy that we're going to bring into our workplace, into the freeway. I mention the freeway because a lot of people take the freeway to go to work. But you will start your day with such gratitude, with such love, that you will radiate different energy to others. And that's how we start self-love. Right? At the beginning of your day, just give yourself the gift of gratitude and love for 10 minutes in any situation that you may be. We don't have to be in the perfect state. It's actually loving and caring who we really are. And if we don't want to say, oh, I don't love myself because I'm not perfect, because we forget that we as humans are perfectly imperfect. We're not here to be perfect. We are perfectly imperfect. But if we start with that sense of gratitude, they really shift. It's the gratitude, the opposite of chaos. So be grateful for what you have. And guess what? We will attract more gratitude into our lives, because the universe, God, everyone loves gratitude. So I would recommend for you to start with just gratitude for yourself, for what you have, and for those beautiful organs that are pumping your blood on a daily basis. And then you could start really to create a beautiful day. And then you go on with, I love my eyes, I love myself, but start with gratitude. Gratitude, it's a gift. It's a gift. So why not give it to ourselves? We deserve it. We deserve that.
Absolutely right, Martha. And I believe that mindfulness really helps us in so many ways. I was once at UCLA, where a master mindfulness guru had us close our eyes and had us feel the wind on our face. Just feel the wind on our face and hear the birds singing and feel the sunlight and which way it was coming from. And then he had us open our eyes, and he said, now focus on what you hear. And so the world was alive with sound. And then he had us focus on what we could feel, the ground below us. And all of a sudden, I felt the grass tickling my jeans, and I could feel so much more than I ever felt before through sensory awareness, mindfulness training. So I have taught myself that, to be mindful, to be aware, to be so grateful for what I am seeing that is beautiful, to be aware of what is in the invisible. Help, so much help is out there in the invisible, and so much power too. All we have to do is open our hearts and tap into that power that is all around us. It is astonishing how much power there is surrounding us in every single moment.
Those are some beautiful words, ladies. Okay, so what came up for me while you guys are sharing? Well, first of all, the heart piece is really important. A while back, I created a heart journey meditation that I highly recommend everybody experience. And it was the first thing that kind of came through me. I was trying to help a friend. And then because he's so logical, I just kind of hypnotized him into his heart, asked him a series of questions. And then when I was done, I was like, whoa, like that's good. Because the thing is about our hearts is our hearts know it's eternal. Our hearts know that we are infinite. It knows that. It's not worried about it. Our minds, the number one thing about our mind is it needs to protect us. You know what I mean? Back in the day, we go outside and somebody gets eaten by a saber tooth. The mind goes, whoa, watch out for that cat. That cat is an a-hole. And so we learn from that. And so we go out, and animals actually, they'll go into fight or flight, but then they'll stop. But what we do is we go in perpetual fight or flight, and we hold on to that. And then we're stressed. Then we end up getting sick because it's just like the job is stressing us out because it's got to go right, because we got to pay the bills. And it just goes on for like days, weeks, months, years. And the thing is, you could switch your perspective instantly and it would shift it. Yeah. And so when you start to guide your intelligence into your heart, and all you need to do is put your awareness there. You know, if you do some mindfulness exercises, like put your awareness to your finger. You're like, ooh, I can feel my finger. Interesting. Put your awareness to your toe. And you're like, it makes a difference. So you put your awareness into your heart and you say, come on, heart's wisdom. You know, what's going on here? And you can operate from a totally different perspective, just like the same thing as I can do it or I can't do it, or life is on my side or life is the worst. And I like how you're sharing that. It's like setting up a container for the day. You're setting up a container for self-love, and you get to choose. It's kind of like you're a computer a little bit, and that's how the mind works, unfortunately or fortunately, but you can program it. So you start to put in like love and gratitude for yourself, and that's like the container, that's the operating system. But you have to take your own consciousness with your own free will to turn the button. Nobody can do that for you. You can go about your day miserable all you want. You can do whatever you want. You can go throughout your day. It's magical as like, a 4-year-old thinking she's a unicorn going across a rainbow. And you're going to get that reflection. So I like the idea of the container, and the perspective is kind of what I wanted to touch on, because Carol, you had like a really intense experience. You same with Ram Dass, actually, which is, one of the people that I really enjoy. And, he speaks about it. And you worry me, because I feel like I'm going to be 90 and great. And like, that scares me. And be like, okay, I'm an athlete. I like skateboarding. This is the way it's going to go, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden life give you what would seem like a terrible situation, a terrible hand. And so I would ask, like, what is your perspective on just suffering? Like, for me, that's one I've struggled with, when like, what the heck is the point of suffering? Why am I witnessing so much? I have this compassion, for this happening. What is the point of it? And how do we master our perspective to go through something? People are upset when they, I don't know, the right TV show isn't on or something ridiculous. Then they're all stressed out about it. And then you have this massive life-changing thing, but you're coming out of a perspective that's very powerful. And that's one of the things in Zen Athlete that I teach, because I want to teach it to kids, that you can't always control the external, you can't. It's just the way it goes. But you can control the perspective. That's your right. So maybe you can speak on that a little bit.
I had no control of my body when I was bedridden. I could not even sit up, and I could not speak. And I was used to speaking all the time to students, but I could only say 3 vowels, A, I, E. And so that was the limits of my speech. So when I started growing, I would always be so grateful and fascinated by the help around me. There were so many people that helped me, and I would always focus on the help, focus on the positive, focus on the desired outcome. When I came home, finally, I used this artist mannequin, and I shaped it in a victory pose like this. And I looked at that every single day. I painted when I could squeeze the paint. I couldn't even use my hand right, but I would squeeze the paint, and I would picture myself walking again. I would picture myself speaking again. I would picture my triumphant outcome, because I believed so much that I would triumph and be victorious. I never believed otherwise. So I would say to kids, focus on the desired outcome, whether you see it or not. Keep focusing, keep your eyes on the prize, because I know that someday you will see it, because you have seen it in your mind.
And it's important to recognize that as humans, we have between 20,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. And out of those thoughts, we have the same thoughts over and over and over. And research have shown that 80% of those thoughts are negative. 80%. And then we wonder why our plans just don't work, or why we feel that life is against us. But it's because thoughts are energy and motion, and those are creating our future. So when we really, what I like to do is ask myself the questions, like when I'm feeling down, or when I'm feeling that something is not working, like, okay, what is my thought behind the feeling? Because if we go to the source, which is our thought, then we are able to shift it. So, okay, what are my thoughts about this situation? What are my thoughts about the feeling? Because we can, what was his name? Eckhart Tolle said that true unhappiness doesn't come from the situation itself, but the thought about the situation, and a thought can be changed. So if we really ask ourselves that question, okay, what is my thought behind this feeling, or why am I feeling like this? Then we have the opportunity and the choice to change that thought, because we always have choice. That it's a beautiful gift that we take for granted. And so many times we say, oh, I don't have a choice. Yes, because even if you don't want to choose something different, you're choosing not to choose that. Therefore, we always have a choice. And that's a gift that, like I said, we take for granted. So understand that we do have the choice to change our perception, to change the way we see things. Because yes, we may not, it's not our fault that something happened, but like Will Smith said, it is our responsibility to create a different outcome on what happened. It's not her fault that she had the stroke, but I'm sure it's her responsibility to create something different, right? To make the best version of herself and not who she is. What a beautiful gift for us to give ourselves the opportunity to see life in a different way and really create a change.
When I was teaching lifers in prison, I was so amazed. They weren't just stereotypical prisoners. They were hungry for knowledge. They were so hungry because they loved to learn new things, because they were imprisoned and they could not do what the rest of us could do. They could not eat good food. They could not go where they wanted to go. The only power that they had was in their minds. So they set their minds free and soaring. And because I was a teacher, they were hungry for what I was teaching them. And I really, really learned from them, because the ability to set your mind free when you were told when to take a shower, when you were told when to go to bed. And these men would never get out, but yet they were compassionate to each other, yet they were kind. And I was so amazed at the prison culture that is never shown in the media, ever. These men had set their minds free.
You touched on a lot of very interesting things again. What comes up, I think about being in prison, having no freedom, and having a scenario that is awful, like everything's taken away. Your scenario of you not being able to speak and be able to think it too, but the body is not working the same. That's like you're here and you can't do it. That's an intense thought to have, I feel like. And so I guess we're along those same lines, talking about perspective and owning that. And so like, how would you express this to somebody who is in, they're working a 9-to-5 or something, or they're just going about their daily lives? Like, what could they take from this knowledge to amplify? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand how much they have access to. They're stuck. They get stuck. I say it's like, fishing. And as you go throughout the day, so many people and entities like corporations or, Coca-Cola or like any kind of like business, everybody's throwing out a hook to kind of get a bit of your energy. Not bad or good. It's just the world wants your energy. Come in here and buy a car. Come in here and get a sandwich for lunch. Come in here and, look good with this thing. Come in here and get some glasses, whatever the case is. And so we have all these hooks that take our energy, and we're just distracted rather than taking that energy and bringing it back to ourselves, understanding our emotions, our internal dialogue, the way we're feeling, the way we're thinking. And from that place, you're in a place of empowerment. And, this situation where, somebody has lost their freedom, but they can still find inner peace. Somebody who's lost their speech, somebody who's lost their ability to do the things that excite them and still find inner peace. So maybe you could touch on that a little bit if you wanted to. And then you didn't quite answer it, and I want to send it your way because I feel like you guys would give a pretty decent answer. But if you had a perspective on suffering, like outside, like maybe it's a loss, maybe it's a loss of a kid, maybe it's a loss of a family member, and just general life can be painful. So when we're talking about perspectives and things like that, sometimes there's just like suffering and you eat it and you're like, oh, like, why do I need to suffer like this? Why is this happening? Like, this hurts, so what's the point of that?
Well, go ahead.
Helen Keller, who suffered from blindness, deafness, and the inability to hear, she said a great quote. She said, "The world is so full of suffering, but it's so full of overcoming too." And I take comfort in that quote because she was the most disabled person that I ever knew about. And she was so joyful. She went out and talked to everybody, and everybody loved her. So I would recommend to an average male or female that they really, really focus on their own life like it was the last day of life. Because I almost died, and I had a great life. And while thinking about the things that I would have liked to do with that great life, I would have liked to love more. I would have liked to reach out more. I would have liked to be more compassionate. I would have noticed my fingers and how much they could grab and reach up, and I would have marveled at this human body. I would have marveled at my own breath, how this divine something made me autonomous and made me able to walk and reach out and reach other people. That is such a miracle. And I now know that I am a magnificent healing machine. I am healing in every single moment. Nothing can stop my healing. So if I had known that at the time, I would have done so much greater things than I did before. So I can't wait to do greater things the next time.
And what I want to say about that, it's beneficial for our own being if we understand that pain, it's part of life. We are going to go through pain. There's not a life that goes without pain. We need pain. And that is part of our experience here on earth. It is totally a part of it. We just want to avoid pain at all costs, but it's impossible. If we are here waking up in the morning and living life, we are going to go through pain. And we all understand that we need pain to understand joy and black for white. It's just a part of life. I think that the problem that we all have is that we think that we shouldn't have any problems. We shouldn't have any pain. We shouldn't go through this. And that it's impossible. We have to understand that that is part of life. My dad was, maybe I'm just going to go a little bit out of the subject, but since you asked about suffering, I was born and raised in Mexico, and my dad was kidnapped and killed. He was murdered in Mexico when I was 15. That was a shock for the whole family. My mom, my brother was 11, I was 15. I mean, it's something that I honestly I hope that nobody goes through that pain. That was a week when we found out that he was taken until we found him. It was the longest 7 days that I can remember. Being in that state of not knowing if you're going to see him again, not knowing if he's alive, if he's okay, if he's eating, if he's being tortured. Okay? So growing up, I mean, I'm a teenager at that point, a teenager. And then we come to the States because my mom doesn't want us to be raised there anymore, and she doesn't want to go through that pain again. So I'm a teenager. I don't speak the language. I'm in a different culture, and I don't even know how to grieve because nobody comes and talks to you and say, hey, this is the process of grieving. Okay. So that caused a lot of suffering, a lot of suffering. We as teenagers, it's already not easy, but going through all that. But then now, with all these tools and meditation and praying and a lot of forgiveness, that's when I understand, okay, I deserve this. But that was part of life, and it was suffering, and there was painful. But understanding that is also part of life, and being able to send love to that particular event. Not saying that it's okay, but being able to send the love so I could go on. But I think what made it easier for me is to understand that unfortunately is part of life too. And painful events happen. And, events that bring sad, that bring tears. And I'm always going to miss my father. I'm always going to, sometimes wish that he'll be here, of course. But that is part of life. We know that we're not here forever. We know that we didn't come here to die when we're old. Unfortunately, different people die at different ages, but that is part of life. We all come here for maybe 10 years, 20, 100. It's just a part of life. So having a different understanding of what life is, an experience. Life is totally an experience, and we are here to experience life for what it is and for what it's not. The only thing that gets in the way is that we think that it should be a different way.
Indigenous cultures used to sit around the campfire and talk about life. And now we have media. And media only gives you the image of happiness because they want to sell products. Mm-hmm. So we don't really ever talk about life and death, and we should, because death is not so bad. And like Martha said, no one allowed her or talked about how to grieve. No one. So we go through life with all these painful circumstances piling up inside of us. And so that is what ultimately keeps us from loving. A child doesn't know anything but love. And so disappointments and suffering stack up because no one likes to discuss it or talk about it. And I think that love is the root of life. And I think that suffering, I have done workshops so many times on suffering, and I have the workshop participants identify their highs and lows in life. And then I have them see what they learned out of the suffering and see what they learned out of the high life. And everybody I have ever taught has an aha moment. They say, my God, I learned so much when I suffered. And I was happy when I was in the high life, but I didn't learn much.
Bless you, sweetheart.
Yes, bless you.
Thank you. I woke up with a little bit of congestion, but I'm here.
Love.
That's a beautiful, well, you guys both said a lot of beautiful things there. And so I wanted to go a little bit deeper because there's another element, which is self-forgiveness or forgiveness of others. And if you don't forgive somebody else for something, one of the things I'll talk about consistently is 100% responsibility for every single thing. And then from that, you can have an empowering perspective. But if it's outside of you, if your happiness is outside of you, if you need an object, if it's this person's fault, if it's because of this when you're 8 years old, but now you're 40, it's just like, you got to drop that luggage, man. Right. And because it's not, what's that? Yeah, it's not empowering for them. And so it can be very challenging. I'm reminded of this beautiful video. It's on the internet, and it's something around like this. Somebody murdered like 5 people, and like the most terrible thing you can imagine. Murdered like 5 people, and then convicted them, and everybody got to say to this guy when he was convicted how, you know, whatever they wanted, the families, right? So the first, second, third, fourth people are just like, burn in hell, you're the worst, you know what I mean? Everything that they can do because they're angry, they don't know how to deal with it. It's, man, who knows? Sounds like the worst. But the last guy goes up, and the whole time the guy was straight-faced, you know? He was straight-faced and was just taking it. And the last guy's crying, and he's just talking about it. He says, you know, this is the worst thing. I didn't even know I could feel this level of pain. I didn't even know that was possible. I wish this on nobody. I don't condone what you did, but from what I believe and who I am, I have to figure out a way to give you forgiveness. And I'm giving that. I forgive you. And he said those words, and the amount of strength and courage and compassion and love and wisdom and humility and strength, and like, that guy is a superhuman to be able to do that, you know, an absolute superhuman. And the guy broke down and started crying. And it's the most powerful example I've ever seen of somebody forgiving someone else. Well, actually, there's one that Wayne Dyer talks about of somebody got in Rwanda where her friend.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I saw that guy speak.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this one is a woman, so maybe there's 2 because which is, I'd love to know the other story. And it comes from this place of forgiveness. And ultimately, that guy in that situation, I think he's the only one giving himself an opportunity to heal, because, you know, those people who don't forgive, not like it's a forgivable thing, that energy is going to store there. And now it might be the hardest thing in the world to do. And I don't know if you have suggestions. You know, I'm pretty protective, you know what I mean? If somebody comes and messes with my sister, you know, I have a spiritual podcast, I will beat the crap out of that. But that'll be the first thing that I think about. And maybe I'll do it. I don't know. The body will just go into the mode if you know, hit my sister or my nephew or my mom, and I'll like choke slam you. And like, it's just like, boom, man mode activate, you know? I'm like a kind caveman. You know, I'm just learning how to not choose that primal operating system. And so if it happened and then you had to deal with it emotionally to find forgiveness, I feel like that's an extraordinarily challenging thing to do. And then also the other flip side I'd love you to touch on is forgiveness of self. People are terrible to themselves. They're not good enough. You know, they're 20 years old and they need a Mercedes, which is, you know, nonsense all the way around. But we don't forgive ourselves. We don't allow ourselves just to be human. You know, and we remember stuff like from forever ago of why we're not good enough and why all this stuff. So I'll stop rambling and just give it back to you guys and see if you can add some 2 cents to that.
Well, yes, it was not easy to forgive that event. Absolutely. It was not easy. I learned to forget because I understand that the only person hurting, it was me. They already did what they had to do. My father was gone, but it was me carrying all that sadness and resentment or questions of why or how could they, you know, we have to move and all that change. But it's like, you know what? When it was easier to forgive when I understood that it was not about me. Okay? It's not like, oh my God, Martha, it's like they did that because whatever it is that they were going through. Okay? And it was easier to forgive when I understood that forgiving them doesn't mean that it's okay what they did. Because by forgiving them, I'm not saying it's okay what they did. Yeah, that's fine. No, it was not okay. But we forgive for ourselves. So it took some journaling, it took some crying, it took some, you know, really taking out that anger that I felt and that sadness that my dad's not here and that he's not going to be here ever again. And understanding that that event was not okay, but it was already done. So making peace. And believe it or not, it was sending love to that event, sending love to those people, not because I'm saying that it's okay, but it's for me. Because we forget that whatever we give out comes back to us. So we want to send love to receive love. So yes, it took some time. It took a lot of work, a lot of courage, a lot of journaling, a lot of crying. But now I'm able to speak about it. I'm able, I do forgiveness workshops and all of that because I did it for me. I did it for my family. I did it for us. Not because I said that it was okay, but I don't need to be carrying that luggage over and over throughout my life. There's no need. It's not okay. I'm not saying that it's okay for them, but I did it for me. It's not about me that they did it on purpose to hurt me. They did that because, whatever their reason was. So when we understand that we do it for ourselves, for our well-being, then it becomes easier. And I think the main point is to have the intention to really forgive. We have to set aside everything else and set the intention to forgive. It was my choice. I set the intention and I said, I'm done feeling like this. I am forgiving these people. When we set the intention, that's when everything becomes easier. And the universe and God, it just puts everything in front of you that you need because you really originally set the intention to forgive. So I had the intention, I did the work, and I'm okay with that. But that's the only way to go on. That's the only way to allow myself to shine. So I have done, many things in the past that I'm not comfortable, that I feel, shame. But forgiving myself was also hard. But taking that same process, doing that same process of journaling, of letting go, and understanding that me too, I'm human. I am human as well. And we learn out of those mistakes. It was hard to forgive the people that killed my father, but it was as hard to forgive myself. But when you set the intention and you get into that state of willingness, then it happens. But we have to set the intention and we have to be willing to do the work. And let all those questions of why or how could they or I can't believe it aside, because we don't need those. In reality, we don't need all this. There's no need to. I'll go crazy if I ask myself why they did that. I'm never going to get the answer. I'm never going to get an answer that makes me feel, right? It's not going to happen. So set all that aside and give myself the permission and the opportunity to forgive, to live a better life, to experience life as a beautiful thing that it is, which is life. I don't know if that answered your question.
That's really, really beautiful and really profound. I think that'll help a lot of people struggling with anything like that. Carol, did you want to add anything on that one?
Well, I am still learning from Martha because she used to drive me up and down the 605 freeway to my rehab, and she would tell me about her stories. And so I would look at her amazed, like, how could you ever do that? And how could you ever do this? And so I suggested that to inspire other people, we write it down in a book, because I was working on forgiving myself of my body not working right, because it always had. And I believed in healing so much, and it was not fast enough for me, because I was always a high achiever and I was always so smart. And now I was slow and impaired in my right side. So I had to learn how to forgive my body and my brain that had allegedly failed me. And so I learned to love myself. Love myself. Now I have a rotator cuff injury, and just this morning I woke up and my whole side hurt, and I said, I'm going to send this love into my shoulder. Think of what it has done for me all my life. And I'm going to really thank it and be grateful for it and send love to it, because pain, it makes you appreciate the health that you have. And I think that love is the answer to everything. And I think that anti-love can drain you, causing you so much stress and despair. So I would love to advise everyone to try to focus on what you can do and on love, and watch what happens out of love. Your whole brain and your body are relaxed, and you are not under stress anymore.
Amazing. You guys have really shared a lot of profound insights. They're very simple and they're very practical. And a lot of the times when I'm working with clients or sharing perspectives with people who might ask about the podcast, or when I travel, the principles are simple. They're not complicated. It's just challenging to do, and it's an endless cycle. I know the techniques. I know I'm supposed to be kind to myself, and I know how that changes my life experience. And sometimes I need to work on it, and I become cognizant, and we become masters of simple things. So, I think that what you guys shared was really powerful, really profound, and really simple. And if we can just start to integrate that, it's great. It's like, oh, this can't just be it. Well, maybe it is it. Just give it a try and start using it a little bit and see how your life changes. So you guys shared a lot of really beautiful and powerful insights. Those are really touching and powerful and just special stories. So thank you guys both for coming on and writing the book and sharing all that stuff. I just want, before we go, just feel free if there's anything that you wish that I had asked you, or if there's anything that you wanted to touch on, you can feel free to go right down the rabbit hole, if you wish. And if you didn't have anything, just closing thoughts of what you'd like to leave the listeners with, and where they can get the book and learn more about you guys.
Well, what I do want to add is just one thing. Yes, it is simple, and it doesn't have to be difficult for it to work. What makes it work, it's doing it over and over and over again. It's like, if you want to be healthy, you have to eat healthy food all the time. If you want to lose weight and be fit to run a marathon, you have to really exercise on a daily basis and start walking and then running. It's the same thing with spirituality. It's the same thing with loving yourself. It's not that it's hard, it's to actually do it on a daily basis. People sometimes start doing affirmations and they say 3 days, it doesn't work. Of course not, because we got to give it time to rewire the brain. We have to give it time to go right there into our subconscious. So it's not hard, it just takes time. That's important for us to understand, that it doesn't have to be hard, it just takes time.
And I would love to tell your listeners to have a mantra and say it over and over and over again out loud. I am a beautiful person. I am a loving person. I am a courageous person. I can do this. I can do anything I set my mind on.
And the book, yes, it's Love Heals, and you can get it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. It's available on Amazon, on New List, and Divorce. Mm-hmm. Divorce.com.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. That was really a pleasure to have you both on, and really just all of it is fantastic. I actually took a lot of notes, and I know that, with people going through healing or trauma or anything like that, when you think about your two stories and the way that you guys are healing from that and offering a perspective and going into the challenge and coming out with a gold nugget, you kind of got to sift through all that. You come out with a piece of learning. So very incredible stuff. Thank you guys both for coming on. I wish you all the best. I hope, you get the message out there and you keep doing your thing. If I can support you in any way, just definitely let me know.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one. Yes. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.